Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. First up today is a tale of accidental consequences. When an older shopper publicly criticizes a mother dealing with a distressed toddler, she expects the mom to shrink away. Instead, she gains an unexpected companion, a crying child and his determined parent. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Mom turns a Karen's judgment into the perfect petty revenge. This is my mom's story, not mine, but it's lived in family legend for years because of how perfectly petty it was. My brother, when he was a toddler, was a lot. Not bad, not spoiled, just genuinely hard to manage. The kind of child who could go from sweet to meltdown mode in 10 seconds flat. Later, he was diagnosed with ASD, which finally made sense of everything. But at the time, my mom was just a young parent trying to survive the daily chaos. So one day, she's doing the weekly shopping at the supermarket, and my brother is in full 2-year-old emotional hurricane mode. He wanted something he wasn't allowed to have. I don't even know what it was, probably something bright and sugary, and when he didn't get it, he lost it. Screaming, crying, wriggling around in the trolley seat like it was actively trying to kill him. The usual. My mom, exhausted and running purely on caffeine and determination, was doing her best to soothe him. Soft voice, gentle shushing, rocking the trolley slightly, all the tricks. Anyone who's ever taken a toddler shopping knows the drill. Most people around her were trying to give the usual sympathetic glance or just ignoring it because kids cry and life goes on. Then comes her. An older woman pushing her own trolley walks past with her chin raised like she's judging the whole world. She slows down as she passes my mom, turns just enough to make sure her voice lands exactly where she wants it, and snaps, "For goodness sake." No context, no attempt at kindness, just pure judgment dripping with condescension. And that was the moment my mom snapped. She'd been holding it together all morning. She dealt with the tantrums, the looks, the noise, the exhaustion, but that comment, that was the final straw. So what does my mom do? She decides then and there that this woman's peaceful shopping trip is officially over. My mom adjusts her grip on the trolley, wipes a tear off my brother's cheek, and begins following the woman everywhere, every aisle, every corner, every shelf. If the woman turned left into the baking aisle, my mom suddenly needed flour, even though we absolutely had plenty at home. If the woman went into the cleaning supplies aisle, my mom pretended to compare 2 bottles of window cleaner she definitely wasn't going to buy. If the woman looped back toward the produce section, my mom discovered an urgent need to inspect apples she had zero intention of purchasing. And through all of this, crying toddler, still melting down, still making noise, echoing beautifully off the shelves like background music specifically designed to test one's soul. My mom stayed close enough that the woman couldn't pretend she didn't notice, but not close enough to start an actual confrontation, just close enough to be an unavoidable, persistent presence. The human embodiment of, for goodness sake. The woman lasted maybe a third of the store. Then, without warning, she abruptly abandoned her shopping trip, marched straight to the tills with the little she had, paid, and left. My mom watched her leave, took a deep breath, looked down at my brother, who by that point had mostly cried himself out, and then simply continued her shopping like nothing happened. Weeks of exhaustion, one moment of judgment, one perfectly petty act of revenge. Honestly, she earned it. Your mom's response demonstrates a simple truth. When someone adds negativity to a situation they don't understand, they shouldn't be surprised when that negativity circles back. And our second story. My aunt stole $1 million inheritance and abandoned the family. When the man who raised me died, my grandpa, but in every meaningful way my father, everything in our family changed. My aunt, his biological daughter, was listed as the beneficiary on his bank accounts. In his will, he made his wishes crystal clear. She was to use that money to pay off the family home, the house he and my grandma built their lives in, and then divide the remaining amount between her brother and me. He wanted fairness, he wanted stability for the whole family, and he trusted her to carry out those wishes. Instead, she did the opposite. She took the money, close to $1 million, and vanished. She let the house fall into disrepair, ignored every family member who reached out, and went fully no contact. That home was supposed to be the last thing tying all of us to my grandparents' legacy, and she just abandoned it, like she abandoned all of us. To understand why this hurt so deeply, you have to understand what my grandparents meant to me. My parents struggled with alcoholism, and when I was 6 years old, my grandma and grandpa stepped in and fought for custody. They gave me a stable home, love, structure, support, all the things two addicts couldn't provide back then. They always told people they had 3 children, and I never once felt like I wasn't truly theirs. And my aunt? For most of my childhood, she was part of that picture. She came to every holiday, every birthday, every family dinner. She'd stay for weekends. She laughed with us, hugged me, bought me little gifts, treated me like her niece in every sense that mattered. I adored her. We all did. So when she cut all ties after my grandpa's death and chose money over family, the betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional. It felt like she threw away decades of love. I didn't stay quiet. I told our entire extended family the truth. Not exaggerated, not dramatic, just factual. I told my great aunts and uncles, my cousins on my dad's side, my cousins on my mom's side, my Nana and Papa's siblings. Everyone who loved my grandparents and would have wanted their wishes respected. And the reaction was instant and unanimous. People were disgusted, heartbroken, furious. They couldn't believe she'd taken money meant to safeguard the family home and help both her brother and me, the grandchild her parents raised as their own, and instead vanished with it. One by one, people cut ties with her. She's not been invited to the last 6 family reunions. People who used to vacation with her, call her, spend holidays with her, they don't anymore. She isolated herself completely. But here's the twist. Instead of losing a family member, I gained about 20. When I started telling the truth, my extended family reached out to me more. They checked on me. They validated my feelings. They told me stories about my grandparents I'd never heard. Slowly, we all got closer. I started attending the reunions. I went to birthday parties, holiday events, Sunday dinners. I built bonds with relatives I barely knew growing up. Through therapy and those new relationships, I realized something important. Family isn't defined by the one person who betrays you. It's defined by the dozens who choose to stay. Today, I feel wealthy in a way no inheritance could ever match. I have connection. I have support. I have this huge, unexpected web of relatives who treat me the way my grandparents raised me to believe I deserve to be treated. I feel held. I feel rooted. I feel loved. I genuinely don't think about my aunt anymore. Years have gone by. The last update I heard from a cousin who still lives in her town was that she's going through a messy divorce and her only child has gone no contact. Money will come and go, but true wealth, the bonds of family and friendship, last forever. OP, sorry you had to go through this, but glad you came out better in the end. And our next story. The neighbor who thought my yard was a road. I've been dealing with this circus for about 3 years now, and let me tell you, living out in the country doesn't always mean peace and quiet. People always picture wide open land, fresh air, and neighbors who mind their own business. In my case, it's been anything but. Next door lives an older man. His wife passed away before I moved in, and since then, instead of just keeping to himself, he's been letting a rotating cast of younger folks move in rent-free. None of them are family, at least not that I can tell, but they sure act like they own the place. They hang around, blast music at all hours, and generally make a nuisance of themselves. You'd think the old man would try to rein it in, but nope, he's been just as bad, if not worse. From day one, he treated my yard like it was his personal driveway. My house sits farther back from the road than his, and I have a long gravel drive. Instead of using his own bumpy little lane, he'd swing his car right down mine, cut across my grass, and pull up to his front door like he was on some kind of scenic detour. It wasn't once or twice, it was every single day. The first time I asked him to stop, he chuckled like it was no big deal. The second time, he acted like he hadn't heard me the first. By the third time, I was pissed. I told him flat out that he wasn't killing my grass and leaving ruts all over the place. He promised it wouldn't happen again. That promise lasted about 48 hours. Finally, after the fourth offense, I'd had enough. I taped a big note to his door spelling it out in plain English. If he didn't stop, I'd call the police. And when he ignored that too, I followed through. The officers came out, took one look at the ruts in my yard, and told him to knock it off. To my surprise, that actually worked. He hasn't driven through my yard since. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. Nope. A few months later, I woke up to a new headache. My security cameras caught him sneaking a massive old box TV onto my property. Not even kidding. Instead of putting it on his own curb for recycling, he loaded it onto his riding mower and drove across my yard into my woods and dumped it. He didn't even try to hide it properly. The thing was sitting barely 3 feet into the trees like some kind of ugly shrine to laziness. This time, I didn't waste my breath. I took screenshots from the Ring cameras straight to the police station. They didn't hesitate. He was charged with littering and trespassing, and they made him haul the TV back out himself. On top of that, they slapped him with a trespass warning. One more step onto my land, and he'd be facing a criminal mischief charge. I thought that might finally keep him in line. Things escalated further when the cops raided his house last year. Turns out those freeloaders he'd been letting live there weren't just mooching, they were running illegal operations out of the place. One morning I looked out and counted nearly 10 police cars lined up on our little country road. State police, local police, the works. They hauled everyone off in cuffs except the old man. For a while after the raid, things actually got quiet. The house sat empty, no more loud music, no more cars flying down the road at all hours. When the freeloaders eventually came back, they weren't the same smug nuisances they used to be. Parole and probation tend to knock the arrogance out of people. And the old man himself, he seems different, humbled. He hasn't set foot on my land since the TV incident, and oddly enough, now he'll actually wave when I pull into my driveway. It's like he realized he doesn't have the upper hand anymore. I wave back, not because I like him, but because I finally feel like I can breathe without waiting for the next ridiculous stunt. The best part, thanks to the cameras, the police reports, and a solid paper trail of every stunt he's pulled, I know I've got protection if he tries anything again. For the first time in 3 years, I finally feel like I'm living in the country the way I imagined. Not perfect, but peaceful enough. And if that peace ever breaks, well, I'm ready. Your neighbor sounds like the kind of guy who figured the countryside was some lawless free-for-all where boundaries didn't matter, and he learned the hard way that it doesn't work like that. And our last story. My brother-in-law destroyed our trust, our property, and my husband's heart. There are lines a family member shouldn't cross, and then there are lines so far beyond forgiveness that once someone steps over them, they never come back. For months, my husband's brother Eric and his girlfriend Tina had been rotting the inside of our home, one boundary violation at a time. They treated our house like an all-inclusive resort. They ignored every rule we set. They borrowed things without asking, ate food we bought for the kids, left messes everywhere, and acted like we should be grateful for their presence. My husband Chuck kept trying to give them grace because family deserves a chance. But trouble always leaves a trail before it blows up. That trail showed up the morning Chuck was packing their things after finally deciding enough was enough. He opened one of the bags and froze. Inside was a small plastic pouch of white powder. "Please tell me this isn't what I think it is," he muttered, voice shaking. There are moments where the room just stops breathing. This was one of them. We called the police. A uniformed officer arrived, quiet and stern. He tested the powder. His face told us what we already knew. "You don't want this anywhere near your kids," he said as he sealed the evidence bag. "You did the right thing calling." That was it. Eric and Tina were out permanently. No more discussions, no more chances. You'd think that would be the end of it. But people like them don't go peacefully. They circle back like bad weather. A few days later, early in the morning, Chuck went outside to take our oldest son to the bus stop. I was still half asleep when I heard him shout my name from the doorway. "The car's gone." He held it together long enough to get our kid on the bus safely, then immediately called the police to report the car stolen. Something about his voice afterward, quiet, flat, made my stomach twist. It felt like the beginning of another disaster. Then the text started pouring in. It was Eric. "Borrowed your car, had to go in for a drug test," he wrote, like he'd politely asked in advance. "Chuck called me from work. Did you give him the spare key?" "No," I said instantly. "It's in my purse." Except it wasn't. The zipper pouch where it always lived was empty. "He stole the key," I whispered, feeling sick. The story Eric gave us made less and less sense by the minute. He said he left the car somewhere by the courthouse. Police checked. Nothing. No car. No sign it had ever been there. This wasn't borrowing, this was theft, and he was lying to us again. The next call from the police came hours later. They'd found our license plate on someone else's vehicle. That driver had been arrested on unrelated charges, and when officers ran the plate, they discovered it led back to our supposedly borrowed car. When they dug deeper, the truth finally surfaced, ugly and ridiculous. Eric hadn't parked our car anywhere. He hadn't taken a drug test. He hadn't borrowed it. He'd sold it to a junkyard for $350. By the time police located it, the junkyard had already stripped it down. The catalytic converter was gone, sensors gone, exhaust system ripped apart. A reliable car we depended on had been reduced to a skeleton in one afternoon, all because Eric wanted a few quick bills and didn't care what or who got destroyed in the process. When the preliminary hearing came, Eric walked in 15 minutes late, waving his paperwork like he was annoyed the court existed. He waived the hearing with zero remorse, zero shame, zero acknowledgement of what he'd done. Now the case sits in the hands of a grand jury. I looked at Chuck that night as he sat at the table with his head in his hands. You don't ever want to see heartbreak on the face of someone who still hoped their family could be saved. Some people remove themselves from your life in one violent, explosive act. Others chip away at every boundary, every bit of trust, until the only thing left between you is wreckage. Eric chose both. And whatever bridge once connected him to our family lies in the junkyard beside what used to be our car. Your husband's reaction is the part that it's the hardest. He kept hoping Eric would course correct because that's what you want to believe about family, that they'll eventually respect the help they were given. Instead, Eric proved the opposite. When someone is deep in self-destructive behavior, they'll take everyone else down with them if allowed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.